final issue on here is change to ultimate aim of BST. There has been some discussion recently about on our website we have a number of aims for BST, and the ultimate aim is for the supporters to own a majority of Blackpool Football Club. Now, since that was created at the start of BST, there's been a bit of a sea change in opinion. We did a survey earlier this year, and the vast majority of members actually voted for some involvement, but not for majority share ownership. So we feel that this should actually now be put back to the members to see if we change that ultimate aim to reflect what people are thinking now. Again, any thoughts on that?
I think we should.
Fair enough.
Change it to something like a significant shareholding and just leave it as vague as that.
I think you just need to ask the members what, in light of that vote, if you think the vote gives you a mandate to change it anyway, then change it. But that particular issue which cropped up on social media, it would just be removing that and replacing it with the one short of that. I mean, it was always, and I'll go back to when I chaired it, I was always championing the Swansea model anyway, which wouldn't have been majority ownership. So the fact that it's in there as an aim is probably a little bit historic. I don't think any of us think it's realistic that we own the football club outright. I don't think we could finance it. So I think being realistic makes sense.
Yeah, it's time to change it. The AGM is the appropriate place to start that. Yeah.
Well, as we said, we will be emailing all the members out about those issues, but thank you for discussing it now. Right, we'll move on to item number 5, which is Supporters Direct FSF reorganisation update. For those of you who don't know, this is Tony Wilkinson. I'm sure you all do know him. In February of this year, Tony was appointed to the council for the National Football Council for England and Wales for Supporters Direct. So we actually, BST, have a representative on that council. So Tony is now, I'm going to hand over and he's going to just talk you through what's been going on.
Yeah, we attended the Supporters Direct AGM in July. That was when the vote was made. The decision was for SD and FSF to join as one organisation. Although BST committee and members felt we would prefer that two separate organisations continue to exist, the vote went in favour of one organisation. The setting up of that is very complex. I went to Supporters Direct council meeting 2 weeks ago. They're in the process of doing that and would hope that the single national organisation will start from the 1st of January next year. Unfortunately, that means that there will need to be a new council elected, and therefore we will have to stand again to get a place on that council. And there is a lot of competition from trusts throughout the country. Supporters Direct currently have 75 supporters trusts. It's a very, very strong organisation, and we, BST, want to be a part of that. The backing that they give us is immense. And in fact, on Tuesday of next week, 3 of the committee at least will be travelling to Birmingham, invited by Supporters Direct, for the Tory Party Conference Fringe event, where a debate on regulation in the game will take place. And it's things like this that our involvement with Supporters Direct creates a real good link for the trust. So our involvement, needs to continue in that, and we will be looking to do that. I think that's about it on the merger so far, and Supporters Direct as it is at the moment. Hopefully the one organisation will continue to provide the links that we need with them, and governance in the game will be high on their agenda, is what we are pushing for. Okay.
Thank you for that, Tony. As we say, moving forward for football governance is very, very important because, you know, our situation has been horrendous, but even if we get it fixed, we don't want to be vulnerable again, and we don't want other clubs being vulnerable. So this is like a springboard really for us. And as mentioned, on Tuesday we are going down to the Conservative Party conference, to a fringe meeting, to discuss this matter with Damien Collins, who is the chair of the DCMS. As I've mentioned earlier, we do need to get politicians involved because, frankly, I cannot see the football authorities, you know, reorganising themselves. It's not going to happen, so it's going to have to be outside pressure. But, you know, your trust is working very hard on behalf of Blackpool and the game generally, and we will continue to do so. And at this point, I just want to say a huge thank you to the different co-optees that we've got, the members who have helped us in so many ways dealing with all of this, because there's a lot to do. So thank you. Moving on to the court process update. Tim, will you just have anything to say?
Yeah, there is, as compared with previous meetings where we've obviously spoken about this at length, I think for this meeting I can probably keep it quite short. For those who don't know, there is a long vacation, a little bit like you have in Parliament in the High Court in London, as a result of which ordinarily there's no hearings listed between the end of July and the beginning of October. So that holiday window, if we call it that, ends this weekend, and the court starts resitting on Monday. Now, we obviously had, just before the window started, this, what I've always called the moratorium, where Valerie gave Owen a period of time to come up with a proposal. My understanding was that would have involved a significant lump sum, but not it all being paid, with some discussion then taking place about what would happen with the balance, and that might have involved a set-off if he took over the club, or it might have involved, if that wasn't going to happen, payment over an extended period. That lump sum payment, despite being promised, was never paid, and I think it's fair to say that the Latvians are now going for it with fresh vigour, shall we say, in relation to the various applications they've issued. What I can say at the moment is, despite suggestions that appear on social media, there is no hearing fixed in relation to any of the applications that have been issued. And I say applications because I believe there's 2, possibly 3. I wouldn't be too despondent about that, because there is 2 or 3 dates, as I understand it, penciled in, and the judge just has to decide whether he's going to hear them all together on one day or whether he's going to deal with them separately. These hearings, as I understand it, will take place in October, so within the next 4 weeks we're going to know a hell of a lot more than we know already about the current status of things. We believe the applications relate to non-handing over of documents that are required to auction Suggester, which is obviously what owns Blackpool, and Close Link, which owns Windyke. If documents aren't handed over, ultimately the court has the power to issue penal notices, which we've already seen on one costs order, and that could ultimately result in somebody, a certain person is obviously in the frame, being Owen Oyston, it could result in somebody being held in contempt of court, and the sanction that's applied then, ordinarily, is that you face a period of imprisonment. So it's pretty serious stuff. There may even be an application to commit in relation to the last penal notice. I don't know that for certain. It might be one of the applications. We normally have because we get bits of information and then we fill our gaps in when we go to court. And of course, because we haven't gone to court now since the end of May, the gaps are getting bigger about what we know and what we don't know. Those gaps will get a lot smaller in the course of the next few weeks. There could even be a hearing next week. Personally, I think it's more likely to be in the 3rd or 4th week in October, and I think the judge will probably deal with it all in one day, but that's a guess. So I'll answer any questions, as I always am prepared to do. That's as much as I know. I know no more than that. I hear certain bits which I try and interpret, and I just try and put it forward in a way that hopefully everybody can understand. But Owen, the short answer is Owen isn't cooperating, surprise, surprise, in the auction process. Owen hasn't paid money he should have paid, surprise, surprise. and he's got one, seriously, excuse the vernacular, pissed off Latvian who's looking to go for the jugular. All right?
Does anybody have any questions for Tim before we move on? I think you've explained it so well, Tim, we don't need to ask any questions. Thank you.